Some people online have been saying that K-pop Demon Hunters is secretly a Christian movie. And I understand why. They notice that there's these Christian themes in the story, and so they really want it to be a Christian movie. They're looking for something in the culture that is Christian, and it totally makes sense. I understand that. However, I think that there's problems with the messaging in the movie. What the movie is actually saying is not Christian. And so I want to break down some of those things in this video. Before I get to that, some things I am not saying. I'm not saying that the movie is bad. I actually think the movie's pretty good. I'd probably give it a 7 out of 10. I would watch it again. I thought that the animation was fun. I thought the characters were interesting. The plot was fantastic. I thought the pacing was quite engaging. And even the music is fun. It's not my type of music, but for a movie, it's pretty good. So it's a good movie. However, the messaging is not Christian. Another thing I want to get out of the way is this whole subject of demons. Some people online are saying that because there's demons in the movie and some of the demons are like these boy band people, that it's this celebration of the demonic. And I don't see that because I think the movie is using the word demon for three different things. And this is kind of a criticism I have with the movie because it just becomes confusing what the movie is even saying. But you kind of have to start from a place of the people who created this movie probably don't even believe in demons in the first place. So they're using demon rather loosely. You have three different categories of demons in this story, which does make it confusing. The first category is these minion-like demons, these little demons that are very easy to defeat, and they are entirely evil. It's pretty clear that these demons are evil. You also have another category of demons who used to be human, like Genu. Genu used to be human, and then he did something awful, and then he became a demon. And so now he has to serve the Demon King, and it's all very awful for him. But then he becomes redeemed at the end. He actually sacrifices himself. He repents. He's not entirely evil. I don't know if he stays a demon. That's kind of ambiguous in the story, I would say. You also have the third category of this half demon girl. She's the main character, Rumi. Her father was a demon, so she's half demon and she's half human. And that is a whole different category because she didn't do anything herself to deserve her demon patterns. She just is this way. So those are three different ways that the movie uses the word demon. They all seem quite different. They seem to be related in a weird way. They all have to do with the underworld. They all have to do with this demon king, Guima, in some way. But they are all treated very differently by the movie. The minion demons are just killed with no regard for them at all. They just go back to the underworld. They just seem completely evil. Genu has like heart. He has love. He has hopes. He doesn't seem to be completely evil. And then Rumi, honestly, she doesn't really do anything evil at all throughout the entire movie, other than she hides who she is from her friends. And that's after she's a demon, right? She's just born this way. They're treated very differently by the movie. So I just want to get that out of the way. I don't think it's a glorification of demons, but I do think it's a confusing thing when you're trying to analyze the movie and think about what is this movie even saying. So with all that out of the way, let's start with the good messages that are in the story, because I think there are three really good messages in this movie, and some of them are pretty close to being Christian. So let's talk about those three messages. The first of the three messages is that hiding what's wrong with yourself is not good for you or for others. Rumi is a half demon in the story, and she hides that from others. And possibly for good reason. She's afraid that she'll be ostracized. She's afraid that people will not trust her. She, after all, is supposed to be hunting demons herself. Demons are evil creatures in this world. And so being half demon makes her untrustworthy. Now, I was hoping that the story would deal with the fact that she was half demon, but the story just kind of glosses over that and just treats it as an idiosyncrasy. It treats it as something strange about her and that other people just need to accept it. I was hoping that the demon patterns would more represent sin or more represent something that's actually wrong with her. But at the end of the day, like I said, Rumi's demonness is treated very differently than Genu or the little minion demons. They're very different. They are actually evil, while Rumi is pretty good. Like, she only does one thing wrong, and that's hide who she is from other people. And that's kind of the point of the story, is that you shouldn't hide who you are from other people, especially those people that you love. And I think that's a fine message. That's a good message to have in the story. It's not particularly Christian, but it's good. One Christian angle you could have about it is that you should confess your sins to people, that you should make it clear what's wrong with your life, so that you can deal with those things. However, the story doesn't actually deal with Rumi's demonness. It just says, oh, you're accepted even though you are half demon. So I would say that it's a half good message, but then the second half is not so good. The second of the good messages in the story is probably the best of the good messages, and it is that sin is seductive and evil will look good on the outside. The Saja Boys are this demon boy band who look really good on the outside. They're really good looking, and just like regular pop stars, their fans end up lusting over them. They cause people to fall into temptation. This is a really good analogy for how sin works in the real world. Sin is the type of thing that is going to look great on the outside, but is actually evil and is going to ruin you. They even have this song called Your Idol, where they're saying, I am your idol and I'm going to completely rule your life. If you center your life around me, I'm going to ruin you. I'm going to take everything else from you, and you're going to love it. You're going to want me even when I destroy you. And that's exactly how sin works. That's how demons work. This is very accurate, actually. And I think this is probably the most Christian thing in the movie, is how they display the way that sin works. Sin is going to be something that looks great on the outside, but on the inside is absolutely awful and is going to ruin your life, especially since it pulls you away from Jesus Christ. They don't have a Christ-like figure in the story, and that's one thing that they're missing. But other than that, this part of the movie was done really well, and I could say that this is a Christian message. Good message number 3 is that love is self-sacrificing. Genu, who was once a human but then became a demon because he did some awful things, ends up repenting, and he falls in love with Rumi, and out of love for her, he sacrifices himself. This is a great part of the movie, and it displays a Christ-like attitude from Genu. Even though there is no Christ-like figure, Genu acts as a type of Christ-like person when he repents and he becomes a self-sacrificial figure. Now, I think that there's something missing from this. If there was a Christ-like figure who sacrificed himself and was a perfect sacrifice, then the salvation would actually make sense and it would be complete. But as we see in the story, Rumi actually has to save herself at the end of the day. She has to join up with the other girls, her friends, and they have to save the day through their singing. Genu's sacrifice is not enough. And that actually makes sense because he is not perfect. In fact, he's very, very far from perfect. But I do like the message that love is self-sacrificing, that self-sacrifice is a very loving thing. So that's another message in this that could be viewed as a Christian message. All right, so those are the good messages in the story. Let's talk about the 3 big lies that are in the story that I noticed, and why this movie should not be called a Christian movie. The first of these lies is that we can save ourselves if we stand together. At the end of the movie, the girl band comes together again when Rumi confesses that she shouldn't have been lying to them. They end up defeating the bad guys, right? Because they stand together and they sing a positive song. Togetherness and acceptance are treated as enough, that salvation can be found in just standing together and being united. But Christianity is not about unity. It's not about just standing together. Christianity is about repentance. Christianity is about being conformed to the person of Jesus Christ. It's not just about being accepted by your friends or being accepted by a group. It's about being accepted by Jesus Christ himself. Unity is not enough. Christianity is about a transformed life. The message in the story, it takes some steps in a Christian direction, but then it stops short and it doesn't tell us the real solution. Yes, Rumi admits to being half demon. She admits to having a problem in her life, though at the end of the day, the movie doesn't treat that as a problem, which I think is a problem. So instead, the movie just says, we can do it if we stand together. And I like this message of don't do it alone. That's a good message. And that's what Rumi was doing before. She was trying to hide who she was and do everything on her own. And that's a problem. And I think some people do that with their sins, right? They think, oh, I'll just deal with my sin by myself. And I don't need to confess. I don't need to tell anybody what's wrong with me. I'm just going to hide it and everything will be okay. I like that aspect of the story, but the movie then just says, oh, you're going to be accepted. And if you just stand together, if you stand with your friends, then everything's going to be fine. I don't think that's actually a Christian message. A Christian message would tell us that we need to be united with Christ, not just with other people. Being united with other Christians is good, and that's absolutely something that we do need, but it all begins with Jesus Christ, not just standing with people. So that was the first of the lies that this movie preaches, and this is the second one, and this is perhaps one of the worst of the lies. And it is that we just need to accept ourselves as we are. So in other words, the big problem in our life is our personal insecurities. That seems to be what the movie is trying to deal with. But Christianity doesn't teach us that our personal insecurities is the problem. Christianity teaches us that sin is the problem and that we can't accept ourselves as we are and that we shouldn't. If we try to accept ourselves as we are lying to ourselves. We're saying, oh, I'm fine. I'm fine the way I am. And if the world pretends to accept you as you are, they're also lying, or they are just using it as an excuse to revel in their own sin. Accepting our sinful nature is never going to solve anything. And that's exactly what the song Your Idol is warning against. Christianity teaches us that we need to change. In the movie, Rumi has these demon patterns and she hides them because she's ashamed of them. But she herself didn't do anything wrong. She's perfectly fine. And it's just an idiosyncrasy. It's just something weird about her. She doesn't have any moral responsibility for her demon patterns. Really, the demon patterns are just skin deep. And the message of the story ends up only going skin deep because Rumi's problem is purely psychological. She believes that because she has these demon patterns that her friends won't accept her. And that actually is the thing that causes her friends to turn against her is because she lied to them, because she hid herself from them. It doesn't actually have to do with the demon patterns. They're only skin deep. Sin is so much deeper than that. Sin is a core problem. And so you can't say that the demon patterns represent sin because that's inherently not what's going on here. I wish that's what they represented. They're literally called demon patterns. And what other patterns in life are demonic other than sin? We have patterns of sin in life. And so I was kind of hoping when I was watching this movie that that's what this movie was going to deal with. But no, of course, it doesn't, because that would be too serious. That would be too real. And so they only go skin deep. So her shame isn't really about something wrong with her. It's just something strange about her. It's just the fact that she has these demon patterns that don't really say anything about who she is. They're only skin deep. Let's look at the lyrics of the final song of the movie in order to point out the problem with this messaging. Now, this is a really important song because this song is the song that defeats the Demon King and creates the barrier so that the demons can't feast upon human souls. Pretty big deal. The whole idea of the story is that these positive songs are the things that are stopping the demons from getting through. By harnessing the attention of the people in a positive direction, they can protect themselves from the demons. And this is the final song that officially makes that realized. So here are the lyrics to what it sounds like. Here's the first stanza. Nothing but the truth now, nothing but the proof of what I am, the worst of what I came from, patterns I'm ashamed of, things that even I don't understand. And here is where we start noticing why a lot of Christian influencers were thinking, oh, this is a Christian idea. These are Christian themes. Because if you look at these lyrics, they actually do seem kind of Christian. They seem confessional, right? This character seems to be saying, and Rumi is the one who's singing this, it seems to be saying, I'm going to tell you the truth. I'm only going to show you who I really am. And I'm going to admit to patterns I'm ashamed of. That sounds like sinful patterns in a person's life. I'm going to tell you about these things that even I don't understand, which kind of reminds me of Romans 7, this idea of I don't do the good I want to do, and I do the evil I don't want to do. So these sound like Christian ideas. Let's continue in the song. I tried to fix it. I tried to fight it. My head was twisted. My heart divided. My lies all collided. I don't know why I didn't trust you to be on my side. This sounds very Christian. If you take it out of context, then you think, oh yeah, like Christians totally deal with this. They deal with this problem of trying to figure out what's going on in their head, and everybody deals with this. Now, it especially sounds Christian if you assume that the you in there is Jesus. If you assume that the you in there is God, then it makes sense because this is a repentance moment. This is I don't know why I didn't trust you, God, to be on my side. Now I'm going to trust you. But we know from the context of the movie that it's not God because there is no Christ-like figure in the story, which is one of the fundamental problems with the story and with saying that it is a Christian story. Because the you in there are just her friends. They are her bandmates. It's just her saying, I don't know why I didn't trust you, my friends, to be on my side. In other words, she should have trusted in the friendship. She should have trusted in human beings and their capacity to accept her, even though she has this brokenness, even though she has these demon patterns. The next part is where we get into really big trouble. I broke into a million pieces and I can't go back. That line is great. That line's good. That sounds like sin. That sounds like I broke into a million pieces. I am a sinner. I am broken. There is something wrong with me. So this sounds confessional. And in fact, I can't really get away from that interpretation. I can't get away from this idea of, there's something wrong with me. If I broke into a million pieces, that's a bad thing. I think it's safe to say that if I broke into a million pieces, that would be a bad thing for me. And I can't go back. Yeah, if I broke into a million pieces, I wouldn't be able to fix myself. This is just like sin. Because I'm a sinner, I am incapable of living a perfect life. I am incapable of paying the price. This sounds Christian, but this next line is the problem. But now I'm seeing all the beauty in the broken glass. So there is where we have a very seriously non-Christian idea. The fact that there's beauty in our brokenness. Yes, people are beautiful, but not because they're broken. Their brokenness is a problem. Their brokenness needs to be fixed. Their brokenness needs to be redeemed by Jesus Christ. People are beautiful because they're created in the image of God. They are connected to the Creator. They're connected to the Father. They're connected to Jesus Christ. This is what makes people beautiful. The fact that God is loving them, the fact that they are the object of God's love is what makes them beautiful. God gives us beauty, not our brokenness. Our brokenness is what often ruins that beauty. God can still see our beauty beyond our brokenness, but people a lot of the time can't because people are only people and we're all broken. We, in fact, have a hard time seeing each other's beauty all of the time. And so this is a really problematic line because what it's saying is that your brokenness, your sin, whatever's wrong with you, and again, this doesn't even make sense for Rumi because her demon patterns are skin deep. She didn't do anything wrong other than hiding her patterns, right? Which is, but that's not what she's talking about. She's not talking about hiding it. She's not talking about hiding it being a problem. She's talking about the patterns being the broken glass. they're skin deep. But if we're going to take the lyrics seriously and think, oh, broken to a million pieces, that's a bad thing. Broken glass, that's a bad thing. Then it shouldn't be a beautiful thing. It just gets worse as it goes on here. The scars are part of me, darkness and harmony, my voice without the lies. This is what it sounds like. And that's great to not speak lies. That's a good message. But to start celebrating your brokenness as if that's the thing that makes you beautiful is a problem. Your idiosyncrasies are not brokenness, first of all. Your idiosyncrasies are a unique thing about you that makes you you, and that's great. We are all unique in some way, and that's great. That's good. Don't have any problem with that. But brokenness is something that needs to be redeemed. Brokenness is something that needs to be fixed. And the movie actually addresses this in Genu. Genu was a sinner. He was an awful human being. He was trying to corrupt humanity. He was trying to bring them underneath the Demon King's rule. He was wanting to feed the Demon King a bunch of human souls. And he even wanted to erase all of his memories so that he could live in bliss. He was entirely selfish. But then love motivated him to protect Rumi, and he sacrificed himself. So that's a case where he turns away from his brokenness. He turns away from his sin, and instead he chooses to do the loving thing. So that's a part of the story that's great. But Rumi's story, well, her problem is only skin deep. Her own psychology makes it into a bigger deal than it is, and perhaps it's the culture around her, but not at the end of the day, because then what do you know? Everybody accepts her. There isn't an actual problem. She should never have feared that they wouldn't accept her because they sing a happy song and everything's fine. So this actually gets to the third lie in the movie, and it's a pretty big one. A positive message is enough to save the world from evil. This might be the most pernicious lie in the movie, and this movie's no exception, of course, because we hear this lie all over the place. Just be positive, just positive vibes, just focus on what's positive, the power of positive thoughts. We see this in the movie by how the K-pop demon hunters, they're just singing these positive songs in order to get people's attention focused on positive things. That's the idea. But that's not enough. And we know that. We know that positive songs are not enough. They're just a band-aid on a much deeper problem. The positive songs are also only skin deep, kind of like K-pop in the first place. The idea that if you just tell people happy things all the time and that everybody will be happy then is a lie. The world is broken. People are broken, and there's something wrong with us. And so a Christian message would be telling us that we need Christ in order to save us from our brokenness. Jesus Christ came to the world not to make people happy. He didn't come just with a positive message. In fact, a lot of the time he told people really, really hard things, things that they did not want to hear. He would not have been a K-pop artist, to say the least. He came to give us a way out of our sinful patterns. He came to give us a way to defeat evil. He came to give us a way to become like him. The gospel is good news, but that good news only makes sense if we accept the bad news first, that we are sinners. K-pop Demon Hunters tries to express this idea that if you just focus on the positive, then everything will be okay. And that's simply not true. That's saying that you can just ignore what's wrong with you. You can just ignore your brokenness, and then everything's going to be okay. But unfortunately, brokenness is not a passive thing. It's going to continue to ruin your life if it's not dealt with. And this is exactly what the sinful nature wants. The sinful nature wants one of two things for us to do when it comes to our brokenness. It wants us to either hide our brokenness in the shadows, or it wants us to accept our brokenness as a good and normal thing. And the movie makes it clear that the first option is not good, because Rumi is hiding her demon patterns, which once again is not real brokenness because it's only skin deep. But then the movie goes ahead and says, oh yeah, Rumi's demon patterns are good. That's not solving the demon problem. They are literally called demon patterns. There's a whole big confusion with that. It would have made so much more sense if Rumi had been starting to act like a demon or something, but she just looks like a demon. It is only a skin deep problem. And if she had to actually deal with that, if she actually had to overcome her demon instincts or something like that, then this movie would have been so much more interesting. But once again, the problem is that it's just a skin deep issue and it doesn't actually mean anything that she's half demon. The story just it lurches to a stop with its meaning. It seems to be going in a Christian direction when it's saying, hey, you need to admit to your demon patterns. You need to let your friends know that you have demon patterns because then maybe they could help you get rid of them. Maybe you wouldn't have to be half demon anymore. I'm hoping that Genu can stop being demon. That's what I'm hoping. I'm hoping that he gets redeemed somehow, maybe in the sequel or something. But Rumi, she just accepts the fact that she's half demon. That doesn't sit well with me because now you're celebrating the fact that she's half demon. It seems pretty problematic. This is where a Christ-like figure would have been so awesome in this movie. Because imagine if you had a Christ-like figure who accepted Rumi as she was. There's this whole room of fans and her friends and all these people who accept her as she is at this final song. That doesn't have any real impact on who she is. That doesn't have an impact on her demon patterns. She remains a demon, even though people accept her. But if Jesus Christ, a Christ-like figure, were to accept her, he could actually solve her problem and he could get rid of her demon patterns. That would be such an awesome story. But that's not the story we got. We got a story of, oh, just accept yourself as you are. Your demon patterns are only skin deep. They're not a real problem. I think that's pretty shallow. I think that's a skin deep message. So these are the reasons why I would prefer if people were to stop saying that K-pop Demon Hunters is a Christian movie. It just goes far enough to look Christian, but it only delivers a shallow message of just accept yourself and others will accept you too. That's not a Christian message. Christianity is much more radical than that. Christianity is the message that, yes, we have deep problems. We have brokenness. And because of that, we need a solution. And most importantly, Christianity teaches us that there is a solution. And that solution is in the person of Jesus Christ.